What's going on? What's good? What's good? What's going on? How's everybody doing today? I'm gonna be talking about the missing Chicago teacher, the 53-year-old CPS teacher named Linda Brown. Has been reported missing. Right. So that's where we at with this today. What's going on with everybody, man? Before we get started, this is definitely let's see where we at with it. I thought I was live right now. Let's see. Am I live right now? I don't really know what's going on. I'm still getting myself together. Just bear with me, please. Let's see. Okay, got that there. Okay. Oh yeah. So now, back to the Chicago special education teacher. Linda Brown was reported missing on Saturday, January 3rd, 2026, after she did not return from leaving her home in the Bronzeville neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. Right? Surveillance video. They say they got surveillance, right? They said they got surveillance video that shows her leaving her car and walking away, but never coming back to it. Raising a lot of concerns because that was the last confirmed sighting. From watching on social media and seeing some of the videos and things like that, a lot of people a lot of people are speculating that the husband has something to do with this. I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't want to make any speculations. I want to make sure that um, all the facts are out first before I decide to make some type of decision on that. Yeah, because you don't want to jump to conclusions and automatically blame someone. And I know in the past that we've had quite a few incidents where a few husbands have been linked to a few to their wives' disappearance and things like that. But for some reason, something is telling me that maybe this could be a hoax. Maybe she wasn't ready to go back to maybe she wasn't ready to go back to work or something like that. So I'm not too sure. Family members and volunteers and police, they have search teams out there all on the lakefront, like the surrounding areas where she was last seen. You know, um, after a few days of this happening, I really started to think that I started to think that this was like some type of hoax, like as if she wasn't ready to go back to work and they was gonna pull a little quick disappearing act and just say, you know what, she had a little episode and she walked off and she doesn't know where she's at. And I think it may have just went um it may have went a little too far, you know. So it who knows. So I don't know. Like I said, that's where I'm at with it. A lot of people, especially when it comes to social media, it's almost like social media has become the new judge and jury when it comes to these cases. Everybody is a detective or a private detective. It's like, yo, you tell one thing out there, and next thing you know, everybody knows what happened automatically. Like I said, I'm not jumping to conclusions. That was just a thought in my head that maybe this was just a hoax. Who knows? And then it went too far. So who knows? So like I said, um, they have a new image released by the police. Shows her last known appearance around the 3500 block of South Lake Park Avenue wearing winter clothing. A lot of people were speculating, how did her husband know what she was wearing? I'm gonna use common sense, man. If you live with somebody, you pretty much know their wardrobe. Pretty much know the things that they're gonna wear. If they go missing, what is it to look and say, you know what, this is what she typically would wear. This is what's not here. This is what's missing. So it can be a possibility that she has on this coat and these boots. This would be her typical outerwear. If she went out, this would be the typical out things that she would wear. This would be the coat that she would wear, and these would be the boots that she would wear. But everybody said, "Oh, how he know what she got with her?" Common sense. Sometimes it's just common sense. Some things are just, you shouldn't even. It is a no brainer. But you can't tell everybody that. Um, public concerns. This is a public concern. Authorities have said Brown could be in need of medical attention. And have asked anyone with any information to contact the Chicago department. Her husband did say that she had her phone with her and it was ringing. So I know it's been a few days, so I really want to know what's the status with that. Is it still ringing, or is it going straight to voicemail now? Because it could have, the battery should be dead about now with all these days that has passed. If it's still ringing, that's a little concerning. If the phone is still ringing, that is a bit concerning. But I don't know why they haven't searched her location. That right there is kind of I don't understand why her location hasn't been looked up through her phone. You know, her family is actively searching. And urging the community to help find her. You know, um, the police still really hasn't publicly confirmed the motive or what led to her disappearance. It's like nobody knows what led to her disappearance. Her vehicle was definitely reported found in the area of her last sighting, and I think that's very important. But police details remain limited because, of course, they don't want to put too much information out there. But honestly, if I was a detective, I would be I would be watching videos of the interviews. I would be watching people that are actively searching, because typically if somebody did do something to her other than her husband, more than likely they were there. They are part of the search. They're part of the search team, or they're gonna show up at these press conferences and things like that when the husband is speaking. So you have to watch for a consistent pattern of who's showing up every time the camera's running, or every time there's a search going on. Who are the main characters? Who are the main people that's showing up? Because this is weird. She could have a boyfriend. Who knows? You know, like I said, we don't know if they had any marital problems, because as far as I know, we haven't heard the husband say, yeah, we were going through anything, or maybe he's smart enough not to even disclose that type of information. So and like I said, this is the car being found was more or less from the family. I don't think I don't think the police have actively said that they found the vehicle. If I'm not mistaken, it was the family that's saying. I don't know if it's his family or her family. So but yeah, anybody with any information, make sure that y'all out there, making those calls, and if you have any sightings or anything, you know, and CPS and Linda's school leadership are actively addressing the impact on students and staff because, of course, this is definitely going to have an impact on the students and staff when it comes to things like this. According to the latest reports, the principal of Robert Haley Elementary School sent a letter to the parents and acknowledging Linda's Brown's disappearance and explaining that the school is working with CPS support services and CPS services to help students and staff cope with the situation. This message emphasizes that additional social emotional support and mental health professionals are available to anyone in the school community who needs help during this stressful time. This outreach is part of a broader effort by CPS to help the community to deal with fear, anxiety, concern, especially since many students may know her or have been directly affected by her absence. You know, um, family, friends, volunteers, they've all organized search parties, focusing on particularly along the lakefront near where her car was last seen because surveillance footage reportedly showed her walking in that direction. Local community members have also distributed flyers and shared information online to help spread awareness. Of course, this is an ongoing investigation. This investigation is going to keep going until she comes, until she surfaces. Chicago Police Department are definitely involved. They're treating it as if it's a missing person case and urging anyone with any type of information to contact detectives or call 911. Anyway, let's wish this woman a safe return home to her family. You know, we already know she drives a blue Honda Accord, but that has already been located. You know, though authorities have not publicly shared the details about where or under what circumstances it was found. We still haven't heard that from authorities. Her husband and relatives reported the vehicle's discovery, which has shaped some of the focus on ongoing searches. It kind of put a different narrative out there. Linda's husband has made emotional pleas to the public. You know, I guess what he deemed to be an emotional plea. Whatever, if it was, it was. I'm not disputing that. Underscoring how very out of character her disappearance is, especially since she took her phone, purse, and credit cards, and missed a scheduled appointment, which is definitely out of the ordinary. He has urged anyone who sees her, even if she looks confused, frightened, to approach her, ask her if she needs help. Definitely ask if she needs help. The family, the neighbors, everyone is continuing to share updates and coordinating search efforts, including prayer gatherings, and volunteer searches along areas where she was last seen. The people are really out here looking for this person, and if we know how social media works, it should. I don't think that it should take that long. Honestly, I'm surprised that it has taken this long. So let's talk about what CPS has emphasized. While CPS hasn't released a centralized district statement, especially about Brown's disappearance, itself. The school's action reflects a broader CPS protocol when tragedies affect the community, offering mental health support. That's very important, right? They are offering mental health support to the staff and the students because, this is a person that they seen every day. This is a person that worked there. They interacted with the students and things like that. And they want to make sure that these children and these staff members are okay mentally to be able to continue on coming back to work, because this is going to affect so many people in so many different ways. They're offering mental health support, partnering with district crisis teams, and communities, and communicating with families about how they can support students emotionally during uncertain times. So that's the latest on the Linda I'm sorry. On the missing on this missing person, it's unfortunate. Linda Brown, she's a I think she's a wife, possibly a mother, and people are really concerned about her. So if you're in Chicago or in that surrounding area where this happened, and if you happen to see her, make sure you say something. We all want her to be returned home safely, and that's it.